more insights on data ethics and all the things that she's working on in the ethics world. So without further ado, Susanna, welcome back. Do you want to give a quick introduction?
Hi everyone, I'm glad to be asked back to speak to this class again. I hope I can add more insights. I am a cognitive science AI ethics researcher. I recently got very interested in the ethical.
And as promised, she's back to give us more insights on data ethics.
Sorry, folks, echo from the YouTube stream. That's my backup. So you can come back. Sorry about that, Susanna's name.
No problem. So yes, I used to work in human behavior modeling and emotion modeling. But right now I'm focusing more on ethical research and how to talk about bias in AI algorithms. And that is a big ocean by itself. There are so many industries within AI, so you have to pick your narrow spot and work on it. I can say that I haven't picked a spot yet, but I am right now generally trying to research every area and to see where I can focus my strength on. Other than that, I'm volunteering with a lot of organizations. One of them is being Data Ethics for All, and the other one is iWow.ai. But my opinions here are my own, and they are not connected to any of them. So that's the introduction about me.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So today we are going to talk about the bias in the ethics, so you're going to throw extra light on the biases, and today you also have some data to show us, which is exciting. So how about we start with the diagram that last time you walked us through, the end-to-end diagram in AI, of AI, and then components of AI, and then walk us through that, and then we can dig deep after that.
Okay, let me share that. 1 second. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I think we all can see. Yeah.
So actually, when people talk about bias in AI algorithms, they always talk about how it is in the actual model itself and how the metrics of the model are biased, and how if we can change that, then we would be able to fix the problem. But that's not where bias actually starts. It actually starts, according to this diagram, it starts at the collection stage, at data collection. That's where bias gets in, as you can see here. And then bias also gets in when you take the collected data and you start labeling it, annotating them, either whether it's natural language processing or image annotation, who annotates them, and what their lived experiences are and what their knowledge is. Based on that, that labeling will also get biased. And then if you take that biased data and then you go to the training, you can actually use metrics and objectives which are biased based on who is doing the training and how they have decided to focus on the use cases. So somebody may actually have a use case that they think has good intentions. Actually, all use cases start with good intentions, but then nobody talks about the other intentions, the evil intentions that come out of it, which is not foreseen. But that is another area where bias gets in. And then by the time it gets into the models being deployed in production and also in the use cases, but it's already too late. If you are going to the end of this diagram, it's too late to fix the problem, because now you have to scrap everything out. You may already have a product launched outside in the public space. So it's very hard to fix bias once you have gotten to this stage. But it's easier to fix it once you are at the earliest stage, which I always used to say was the data collection stage, until I listened to a talk by Renee Cummings, where she actually said it starts at the ideation stage, which is even prior to data collection. At ideation stage, you are actually thinking of the concepts and everything, and that is where bias actually starts in. If you don't have a diverse team, That's one area that bias starts in.
Right. And that very interesting point, like, so after your session, we had a session on, a consequent session on labeling of the data. And we talked about how labeling works and who does labeling. And very interesting part is that the people who do, who collect the data, people who label the data, they might be in completely different geographical locations. So their biases might be their biases are introduced with their own culture. They come with their own culture. They come with their own history, with their own viewpoint, right? And it could be just different people because these are activities done by people in. So like labeling could be done at a different corner of the world versus collecting of the data is done by someone else, right?
Yes, exactly.
So that goes back to the ideation point, right? Yeah.
Yes. So it goes back to the ideation point that when you are ideating for a particular group, a particular society or a place, you need to be careful whom you are giving the data to label. It has to match the context that you are asking them to do it, or you have to, if you want more diversity, you have to be careful about whom you are giving the data to labeling and how they are trained and what their biases are. Everything has to be mitigated, but nobody wants to take the time to do all of that. And one way labeling data is like even in public data sets like Pantheon data set, which I wrote a recent report on. That's where, people have labeled women as companions. Michelle Obama and pretty much all the politicians and all the women writers and scientists were now companions to their spouses, which is such a discriminatory and also a sexist label. But that's out there. Even now, you can, if you don't believe me, you can go to Pantheon and then find out what I'm saying is true. That data set exists. So we have a big problem in every stage. Every stage we have a big problem.
Right. Right. Okay. So talking about the ideation phase, can you tell a little more about, so when you are ideating, you basically, we go through, like as a PM, you would go through, okay, what's the value that this algorithm is going to bring? So we start from the value and then we walk back and we say, okay, what we need to do. So do you think at each stage we should have something that says, that tells the people who are going to do the activity like collecting, labeling, training, gives them a guideline on how the ethics or what should be considered while doing this activity? Or do you think there has to be like a very specific guidelines around it? And is there any work that's going on around it to say, okay, this is the framework for ensuring that bias is not introduced in different stages of your pipeline?
Yes, there are many people, many organizations, and many people have actually come up with a framework tools that you can use to actually see where bias is creeping in every stage. And also there are components of the workplace have to be different as well. You have to have more diversity in your team. That is one way you can reduce bias, because if there are more women in the team, or like if you are labeling a data as called companions, a woman would have immediately objected to that. By not having her there, you are not able to have that dissent in the conversation, in the dialogue. So it is like including a lot of diverse opinions in a dialogue is also one way to reduce bias, but also to acknowledge that there is a lot of societal racism and bias that are built into every culture. To have that acknowledgement, that should be openly acknowledged within companies, which I don't see that happening. So there are like many groups, I can point to many of them who have come out with tools in which you can do that. And there are like evil modeling or harms modeling tools that are out there that you can use as well to see that your use cases have other use cases as well.
Is there a website or a resources page where we could access this? Are you aware of that? Like, is there something that we could go and see, or is there a website that we could go to?
To see the kind of tools that are being put out. I could give a list of them. I didn't have it handy right now, but
okay,
definitely I could give a list out.
Sure. Yeah, we can send an email to everyone afterwards. That's pretty cool. Okay, so moving on to the biases. So I know you have an example that you want to walk us through about criminal justice and racial justice. How about we go and talk about that?
Yes, definitely. Let me stop sharing this one. Okay. So one of the areas, I think there are like many areas you can talk about the criminal justice system, but one of the areas that I picked for this one is like how poverty is being criminalized, not only within the United States but throughout the globe. That if you are poor, you are twice penalized for everything. It's already you may have been poor because of how the system is set up, or maybe it's going against you in some way, but then you are, because of the fact that you are now poor, you have many things levied against you. For example, like if you have a broken tail light on your car and you are not able to fix it on time, you may get a ticket. And if you don't pay the ticket, you may get a warrant. And if you don't address the warrant with a legal team, you will get put in jail. And if you don't have bail money to come out of jail, you will stay in prison, and then you will finish your sentencing, whether you are guilty or not, and you will come out, and then you have a record on yourself. Once you enter the criminal justice system, you never come out of it. You are perpetually, it's like a revolving door. Once you go in, you are there. And once that criminal record is on you, now you cannot get the jobs. Now it's going to follow you throughout your career, and it's going to affect the way how much you earn throughout your lifetime is going to be determined by that one event. So that is how many societies have criminalized poverty. In a way, it's like it's very sad. It's a very deep conversation, which I'm not going to go into, but I'm going to only talk about how that process, which was already there in society before even computers came out, is now being massively discriminatory when the AI algorithms were introduced into it. Now, one of the AI algorithms that are in criminal justice systems is like a tool that actually this tool also came out of a good intention as well. It is like all if we can find out the risk factor of someone and see when we can mitigate that risk factor, we can actually help them. This is how many of the AI algorithms in the criminal justice actually came out. They came out with a good intention. And now that's not how it works now. It's actually, they actually take those tools, which pretty much determines factors from your socioeconomic background, your education, and other, parameters. I think I have my notes somewhere on that, but it basically takes all of that and assesses a risk score for you. Based on that risk score, they will tell you whether you are likely to offend or not offend or re-offend, and whether you are a risk for the criminal justice system and how to mitigate that. But by having that risk assessment score being given out to judges now through apps and algorithms, they are now using that against you because they don't even know that when they see that, oh, this algorithm has now given a risk score, high risk score of 60 or 70%, Sneha is going to be a criminal. And then they see that you came in for a minor misdemeanor or something, like maybe you crashed into somebody's car, or maybe you had a fight with your neighbor and you had some altercation and you are now in court. This, along with this risk, so they are going to see, oh, okay, she's kind of a danger to society. And now the things are going to be levied against you that were not even there in place before this happened. So this is how AI algorithms are now being used in the criminal justice system to set your bails, set your time, set your, even the sentencing and everything. So what we are trying to say is like this is not only affecting the marginalized communities, which is what everybody preaches. Oh, it's going to affect the marginalized communities, but no, it's affecting everybody. If you are only targeting one sector of the population and you are damaging them, you are targeting the whole population, because everybody pays for that. We are all paying for people who live in who have now been incarcerated. So that is taxpayer money as well. So we have to
Right.
really focus on that.
Very interesting. So this system that you mentioned about this code, is it like in use right now, and people and the judges use it very actively?
Yes.
Very, very interesting. So this is in US, though, right?
This is in US. It is there is a I can give a link to all the list of all the counties and country, I mean states that are now using this algorithm in their justice system, and also all the petitions and events going around it, they're asking them to stop using it. Some have been very successful in LA, like they were very successfully able to stop the campus program from being put into effect, but in other places it keeps going. It's still there. It is called by different names. I think the nicer names they gave it is risk assessment or something, but it's not a risk
Yeah.
assessment of any kind. It's really sickening. It's really criminalizing normal people's livelihoods.
Very, very. It's sad, and I did not know about it. I'm not sure everyone in the audience knows about it. But having said that, please free feel to
Yeah,
feel
I
free
can.
to ask questions or type questions. You can unmute yourself and ask questions if you want. It's pretty open session today. So having said that, Susanna, thanks for sharing that.
Uh-huh.
Let's go to the public website that you mentioned about ProPublica, and we have some information, like you said. I did not hear about ProPublica before you mentioned it, and we have data sets. There are analysis going on. How about you walk us through that data set? Like take one data set and walk us through it, and just talk us through the analysis. And I think Amazon is the example you're using. It's pretty, everyone knows about it, and it's pretty common. So over to you.
Yes. Let me share that screen. Okay, 1 second. Share screen. Hope I'm sharing the right one. Okay. So this is ProPublica's website. And they do a lot of good work. You can read about it. They also have a lot of public data sets. But these public data sets, I want to tell you something. Like if you actually spend like 5 minutes on Google and put in criminal justice system public data sets, you are going to have all the case histories of any county or any state that you want. This information are public. They are not like hidden behind any paywall or anything. That's for you. You can actually download in as much of a data set as you want. It just requires a login, like they ask you to give your email and set up a password, and then you can download them. They come in CSV files or they come in PDFs, but there's information that is out there that anybody can actually use. And I picked this one because this gives not only the public data sets, but it also tells you the um, advocacy that they took towards gaining these data sets and how they tried to change it and how they analyzed it. So I thought this would be a good overview for someone who is very new, who doesn't know how to take a data set like that and do something with it. So as you can see, I came to the algorithmic data sets, but there are like other ones also you can go and see in that website. There's like Facebook ad categories, Amazon pricing data, and the other one I told you about Compass, which could be a class by itself, or a course by itself, because just to take this data set and to see all the problems with this kind of a risk score data analysis and how it came about and what it is doing, it's a big story. But I didn't pick that one. I just picked the Amazon one for today.
So
So
I have a quick question. So this data is being acquired by ProPublica, and the analysis has been done by ProPublica. Is that right?
yes, and they have
Okay,
released
got it.
everything out to the open to the public. So for
Hmm.
our awareness, for our education. So yeah, so you can actually go here. As you can see, it like tells you what was the source, when was the date it was released, the size of the files, how many rows are there in the CSV file, and it also tells you
Mhm.
what the subject is. It says Amazon puts its customers first, but its pricing algorithm doesn't. So that's what the subject line is, which actually is, if I can give you a short overview, is that Amazon, when you go there, how the pricing algorithm works when you search for any term that you want, and then it actually shows you the products from different sellers. But what they ProPublica found out is it's very selective on what it shows you. It's gonna show you the most, not the most expensive, but it won't show you the least expensive one on there, but it will show you the one that is more beneficial to Amazon. And so that the algorithm itself works like that to make sure it shows you that. And it also has other biases in it, like depending on the area that you're searching for, that pricing algorithm is more discriminatory. So this is what they have found out. They wrote a big article on it, and then they also tell you how they analyzed Amazon shopping algorithm. So there's like a whole nice article on it you can read. So this kind of information is available for all the data sets on their on the page.
And it's all free, right? Like we all can go in there and do it.
Anybody can go in there and do it. Yes, you just have to, I just went in, logged in, I means like I gave my email and password, and then
Right.
allows me to download all the data. You don't need any special
Right.
So,
affiliation or anything to do.
Quenzuela is reading my mind. So all this public data set has been collected and put at ProPublica. But does it mean that we just have to read the analysis done by somebody, or can we create our own graphs and stuff from there?
You can create your own graphs. So let me share you. I just to show a sample. I don't think we will have time to walk through the actual analysis, but you can see.
So you downloaded the data. So just the data set is available. You downloaded it. And this is your own Excel or Google Sheet,
Yeah,
right?
that is the data sheet that I downloaded. So as you can see, it tells you what they were searching for, and what the price, and where it ships from, and how Amazon has determined the price range, the BB correct price, the BB vendor price, and all of that. It's there. This data you can analyze in any way that you want. I can actually show you there is another one. Let me see. Okay. I think I didn't open it. Okay, let me see.
It's okay. So this is, I think this is very interesting. I wasn't aware of ProPublica, but I just went on the website and just to go through the different data sets, and they have these data sets in different industries. So there's racial justice, healthcare, technology. So I can, if I'm interested in healthcare ethics and the AI ethics in healthcare systems, I can go and download that data and just do my own analysis and see, okay, which is I think pretty cool.
Yeah, if you also, I didn't have that open, but if you also Google data analysis tools for free, that's also there. You can take the same Excel sheet and analyze
Mhm.
it the way you want. So it's
Right,
it's
right.
not it's not like somebody is putting a paywall that's preventing you from doing this work on your own. Many people
Mhm.
have visualized data and published it. It's like good to see it in different formats, so that we are also aware of the biases within these systems.
It's very
And
interesting.
in terms
So,
of product development, I think there are like ways you could take existing biased algorithms or existing biased apps and see how you can make it better, or how you can fix the
mhm,
bias in that. That is one area of focus that many people can do as well.
okay, very interesting. So you mentioned you sent me some Excel sheet about the examples and the tracker. Do you want to talk about that and help us understand what you're working on in the hackathon.
Excel. Oh, I mean, you mean the one that I showed just now?
No, the one that you shared with us. And you want to talk about, if we don't have to show it, if it's too much information, we can come back next time and talk about it. But we can, if you just want to talk in very brief, the exercises that you're working on.
Right now.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. Since you were showing some data, I just want to make sure that if anybody has questions on that, because usually we have a conversation and you're telling us, right? So educating us about this. Now you have a hackathon and then you show us a little snippet of data. Obviously, I'm data hungry. So I want to see if anybody has questions about it, because the more people are confident about what they can do, then they will obviously, feel confident they can apply the ideas that they're thinking and come to the hackathon and go do something.
Yeah, I see a lot of questions, but are there questions or okay? Oh, it's from Sudha.
Yeah, I think
I had asked, is that compass from one specific vendor? It's one particular technology vendor.
Yes.
And so if they are not in service of the court system today, or they're still there in different states?
Oh, they are still there in different states. There are also offshoots of companies like that have now developed their own programs, and now they are also having partnerships with government agencies, which is really scary. But that's actually happening now, and it has happened, and it's in Georgia and other states. It's really scary if you actually try to learn about what's happening there. You don't even know how widespread this is and how people are so comfortable already, because they don't know the dangers behind it. Until it happens to you, you won't know, right?
Yeah, that is the thing, that people always think that whenever we hear about bias, they're always thinking it's about somebody else, it doesn't affect us, right? And when it affects us, unless it's a very obvious situation like the example you said with compass, people won't know, right? People won't even know that most of the time, like when the pricing with Amazon, I would know it's affecting me if it is affecting me, right? So most of the time we either have the luxury, the privilege of thinking that it doesn't affect us, or we are impacted and then it's too late. Okay, so if the class doesn't have any question, you can chat away, guys. Otherwise we can move on. I don't want to take away.
Does anyone have any questions on?
David has shared a book called Automating.
Yeah, he shared a book.
Oh, thank you. I will take a look at that.
It's Automating Inequality by Professor Virginia Eubanks.
Nice.
AI in criminal justice. Yes, that is just one area of focus, but you can take AI in any area, even in healthcare. You can see the bias in there. You can take it in financial sector. You can take it in the insurance sector. It's everywhere. So you can focus on any area that you want, but the underlying basis is that it's the training data. Even yesterday, I was talking at the Women in AI conference, and they were trying to talk about the trolley problem. And I said the trolley problem is not a bigger problem. The bigger problem is what is the training data on the trolley. I'm worried about that. It's whether it kills one person or kills three people. That's a simplistic solution. I can make the decision within a few minutes. Yes, one is better than three. But then what is the training data that the trolley is being trained on? Which neighborhood is it getting its training data sets on? And what about lower income neighborhoods? What about high crime neighborhoods?
So can you tell us a little more about this? Tell us a little more about this trolley system. What was the example, and maybe we can learn from that.
It's called the ethical dilemma of the trolley. It's a problem statement that people focus on when an artificial intelligence in an AI vehicle decides um, who to harm in an accident scenario. But this trolley problem was actually posed long before even cars were there. So this was like, I believe, 18th century or early 19th century. So there's a runaway trolley and it is coming down a hill. And on the track, at the end of the track, there are like 5 men or people standing there, and they're working on the track itself. And there is another track where only one person is there, and you are in charge of the lever. You can either turn the lever of the trolley to go towards the 5 people or go towards the one person. Which one would you choose? To kill the 5 people or to kill the one person? And that's the trolley dilemma. But that's now being used in the AI dialogue within AV vehicles, which I think is too confining and too simplistic, because the autonomous vehicle is not making a moral decision. It's actually
Right.
making a program decision. The human being is also not making a moral decision. The human being is just reacting to the scenario at hand. I don't know which one. I may be a good person. I may now tell you that I just want only one person dead. But I don't know, in that moment, I may ram through the 5 people also. When you're in a when you're in that kind of a situation, you don't know. You're not making a conscious moral decision. You are reacting. So actually taking that analogy to an AV vehicle is not fair, because the AV vehicle is programmed on training data. And that is why I said the
Right.
trolley problem has to be talked from a different angle, and not the angle of the utilitarian purpose of whether to kill one or kill 5.
That's very interesting because, yeah, you're right. You're right. Like when a human being is making a decision, it's more, there is no, you, like you said, you're reacting, you're panicking. But the autonomous vehicle is reacting on the data. So the question is, when you train the vehicle, how many people did you train it to kill? Like how many people, or which way direction did you send the training data on? And that's what it's going to react on. And then then the operator also is different, right? In that case. So very interesting. I did not know that they use the trolley problem in respect to autonomous vehicles. Anyone has any more points, discussion? I think this is a very interesting, interesting way of looking at it, the ML.
So I like the statement, Susanna, the one you made, that trolley problem is a software problem and humans are only reacting. I would like to unpack that, because as a product developer or product designer, people are part of defining this problem. So it's not about the trolley problem and the ethical dilemma, but what training data are we going to give? What decisions are we going to give when there is a gap and they do ML optimization and all that, right? All that is done by human beings who are in the product development cycle. That's the first beginning ML pipeline picture that you showed. So yes, that is one. And the second thing is the end user at the end of all this, when it is designed and developed and given to them, the end user is just reacting to the tech provided, right? So again, there could be a designer decision on what you offer, different scenarios on how the user would behave. If we take the trolley problem, or it could be the Amazon best match algorithm, or something that we are going to present to the user. So there's a role for the PM here and the role for us as consumers here, or users of tech. Can you talk to that in the context of another data, not something like shopping, criminal justice? It is horrible for me to hear that and not do anything about it. But it feels very distant, like I can't do anything about it. Yes, this company is doing, this other company is doing, right? So what can people here in the room? I see the multiple participants who are from tech, interested in the innovation. What can they do? Can you talk to that?
I think one thing that I always say everybody can do is actually learn about these problems. That's first thing, is awareness. For many here, if this is the first time you are hearing about it, that is already too late. So it should be, we should actually try to learn more about it. But in terms of an actual application oriented solution, I would say uh, there are you could actually use the tools that others have provided, or you could make your own tools in terms of taking an advocacy position within your company, and say within each part of the stage of development, that you are advocating for elimination of bias. That should be a focus point of every discussion that you make in there, and somebody always has to raise that. In my own experience, I have found in pilot studies, even when they are doing the smallest pilot study with 10 people, I would demand that there be fair representation. There should be 5 men and 5 women. I would be demanding that 3 of them should be older in each group. I would be demanding that there should be at least one Asian, one African American in all of them. You have to demand for these things at every stage. Even when you might say, "Oh, it's just a pilot study." By the time we go to the bigger, larger study, we will be able to solve all this. The larger data set will take care of it. It never does. The larger data set is now programmed on the smaller data set. So you have to start there at that point. Have not worked in product development that much, so I would not know how that translates in, how the processes are. I think Sneha would be a good person to talk about it. I worked in the research side of things, purely theoretical research or behavior modeling research. So I only I can only speak there and say that whenever you have a researcher project starting, at the very beginning itself, you have to advocate for those things. I think that is one of the key areas that people have to focus on.
I think that's a very interesting point that you mentioned. Like from the researcher perspective, you would ensure that this happens. And then Sudha's question is from a product perspective, or when you're trying to design or the ideation phase. I think that goes back to the first question that I asked you was about what are the frameworks? How do I ensure that all of these people or who are doing their jobs have this framework or guidelines on, and those guidelines should reflect that we either train them to remove the biases or every time they think that there is, or just have a way to train them to say, okay, if there is a dilemma or you think there is a question, these are the frameworks you should look at. It's very difficult. Even if you change the context of labeling the data, if you ask someone in US to label the data versus to ask someone in India to label the data, it's going to be different. And then there are different, and then there are layers of user behavior, right? There are some, I was reading this book, there are some women who think that it is their job to cook all day, who think it is their duty. Like, that's the bias. It's not that they want to do it. It's the way they have grown up, the way the society they have grown up in. And they feel, yeah, what's wrong with that? Yeah, it's your job. Yeah, it is my job. So how do you get to the level of that bias? That's a very different level. You add more such women, your algorithm is still going to be biased. So, so the context of what you're trying to say is that, and from a product perspective, because from a product perspective, you try to say, okay, what is a framework? Let's have a framework. Let's have common guidelines, and that's why I asked you, what are the tools that we could have? And if I have to go down one more level in product, what are the acceptance criteria? What are that we put in and say, okay, fine, based on these criteria, we're supposed to make a decision, and make sure that criteria tries to is encompassing enough to that solves the problem. But yeah, I think like you said, it has to start somewhere, and it at the modeling phase, right? At the research phase, where you say, okay, who are the people who are going to make this decision?
Yes.
And then from a product perspective, we come up with and say, okay, these are the frameworks, these are the tools, and these are the guidelines that make sure that, or at least reduce it. And then the third part, I think, if you ask, is the question of feedback. Where does the feedback come in to say this was a biased decision? Where's the feedback that says, by the way, I know you made sure that there was no bias, you made sure there were people, but then how did this was a biased decision? Where does that feedback loop come in?
Yeah, the feedback loop has to include people from the outside as well. That's what I believe in. But it can be done even without giving out your company secrets. I do strongly believe that you can show your algorithm without showing your data, without showing the entire framework to the, in order to protect your IP, you have to do all that. But you can still do that and open it up to a wider diverse group, wider perspective. That way, you will get that input. One area that I can think of where that whole system failed was in terms of developing this kids tracking app. Long before, when kids were like being abducted and taken away and all that, how can we use technology to safeguard kids? Oh, okay, we can just put a tracker, and then a tracker on their watch, and then have a tracker and put it like a device around their neck. It seemed like a great idea. And that whole thing, in the 80s and late 90s, it was all a physical device. You put it around your kid, and within a proximity sensor, it will tell you how far the kid has gone. And if it once the kid goes out of range, it beeps, and then you get alarmed and you go look for the kid. So this was a great use case, and nobody saw there would be any evil coming out of it. Come the late 90s, and then cell phone came, and all the cell phone technology was now getting very popular, and all the cell phone apps came. This tracking device was put in, like kids tracking apps. They were very popular, like you can download even for free so many of them on your phone. They are all there, and then now they are like, you can even remotely send a tracking app to your kid's phone if you are suspicious. So there was like, oh, but still it's such a good thing. It's going to keep my kids safe. There are so many child molesters and predators out there, and child trafficking. But look what happened the other side. Nobody saw that. Those tracking apps are now being used against women. They are now being put by their abusers. Those tracking devices are now placed on the girlfriend's or wife's phone, even long after they are separated. Even if there is a restraining order on you, doesn't matter. Your phone is now going to be tracking and sending all this information to your abuser. And this is a major problem in women's abuse centers. The first thing they will do as soon as you come in is like, show me your phone. Let's do a cleanup and see which tracking device is on you. And even if they remove it, somebody can from another number send an image or a GIF and then apply this tracking device again to their phone. So this is where that technology went completely off track, from a good intention to a horrible intention and a horrible use case. Why didn't people see that? that could be like that could be the one question that I would ask every product, not a product developer, but every app developer, everyone that's developing any technology. Can you at least spend a few minutes in ideation and think about what is the evil use cases? If you had done that, you would have found out that if it's a tracking device, it can be used in any way. It cannot only have good uses, and that they could have built in some mitigation factors into that. But it's not there anymore. Now it's a problem. It has taken many women's lives also, which is a very sad thing to happen when it started with a good intention. So that's one area.
Right. And it goes back to the ideation part, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
what are the rival use cases for this? So it goes the intention. So like I said, when we try to develop something, the first thing that they are asking is, what value does your product bring? So if you're pitching a product, my manager would ask me, okay, what is the value that this brings in terms of ROI, in terms of whatever, acquired users, and then I think there has to be some more metrics that says, okay, what is the rival use cases? How can this be misused by users you don't intend? So you usually have, okay, who is the persona that is going to be using? And you say, oh, it's a worried mom who is going to use the tracking device. Okay, who else can use it if it's out there? Because if I say it's a worried mom, the value is you can track your kid whenever he goes out of a certain zone or out of the playground, and you can then track that. It immediately gives out the value. I would, if you ask a mom, will you pay for this? They'll be like, oh, very interesting. Let me think about this. Sure, why not? But then how can this be used by a rival persona? I think that would be a very interesting mindset change for product managers, product developers, engineers to in the ideation phase. I think this goes back to where ethics should be part of the solution, not an after effect. It shouldn't be the layer that sits on top of your product, like security, right? We talk about security. It's not something that you put on top of your product. It's something that you embed within your product, and it should be one of the criteria in your product. So this goes back to where ethics should be part of your product ideation.
It should be built in, it should be baked into it, it should be the groundwork behind your whole product. The talk of ethics should come at every stage, and it should come at the very beginning stages as well. That's what's missing. And there are I could easily point you to a lot of frameworks out there. One of the things, maybe I'm a little too puristic in my ethical advocacy. I just All of those frameworks out there have now been put out by companies, by the big tech companies. And whenever I go and take a deep look at those frameworks that they have provided, it's not good enough. It leaves out so many loopholes. It's as if to protect them from litigation. It has that basis to it. So I feel like other third party organizations that are not part of the profit market should come out with frameworks that are more rigid and more robust in their advocacy, because some of these frameworks, even there is harms modeling by Microsoft, which I think is a good initiative, and there is even fairness research program by Google. They have put some tools out there, and one of that image that I showed you from is from Google's uh, fairness research tool or something it's called. So that image is from them only. So they create a lot of awareness. They have these images that you could use to bring awareness to people. But when you actually look at it, what is your end point? When I ask them, will you stop this product from going into launch when you find out that the risks are too greater than the benefits? The answer is no. So that is not good enough for me. When you say that, I'm still going to launch the product, but I know it's evil.
Right. And then I think then if we go back to the mindset of saying, okay, why are you still launching the product? And they will say, oh, we have investors to answer to. We have used or burnt out all this money. We need to get back that money for them. And then I think it is beneficial both for the company. But if they were made aware of this problem in the ideation phase, they would have said, okay, let's not build this. And then they could have built something else. And at that point, maybe 80% of the room would have said, yeah, let's not build it. Versus now 80% of the room says, yes, we understand it. Let's put some patchwork and release the product because we need the money to come in. So, or investors to answer. Or at any point, the moral dilemma should be, okay, let's not release the product. But what I'm saying is that how to make it a win-win situation is to introduce the realization of an issue or problem early on. So that way, everyone's on board and say, okay, no, let's not build this product. But yeah, I think it goes back to focus on ideation and introduction of ethics in the ideation phase.
Yes, yeah. There should be community involvement as well. Like you should bring everybody into the room so that you can have this perspective from different places. But one of the things, it cannot be done in a product development stage where there's IP protection and all of that is involved. There has to be a framework, so that's why companies are developing their own framework. But when they actually push that framework as the gold standard out there, then that's where I come in and I say, no, it's not a good, it may have worked for you within your context, but it's not a gold standard that you can say is actually going to work unless you say there is something there. The risk is more higher. I'm not going to release the product out. Actually, Microsoft has a program where they call it as a gated release. I have a problem with the gated release as well. It's like saying I have two psychopaths in my garage, but then I'm not going to release them into the public. I have gated them. Now, if you request, Sneha comes in and requests permission, I will release them to her. But why does Sneha need two psychopaths? What is she going to do with it? Nobody is asking. Why do we need a gated release of something that is already evil? If you have already found out that it's not going to help anybody, if you found out that it doesn't have a use case that's going to be beneficial to the larger population out there, and that is going to really hurt people who are marginalized.
So what does gated release do? Help us understand. What does gated release mean?
The gated release means the product is not released at all to the public, but it is behind a gate. So if you come in and ask for permission and you go through a review process, it will be released to you. And then you have to say, within these boundaries, I will use it. But why is that even being done? It's like, that's what I use the, analogy of having two psychopaths in the
And
garage.
then who takes the risk? Then I have a question about who takes the responsibility of ensuring that the users are adhering to the guidelines and the rules of the gated release. If they promise to use it in this scenario, are they really using it in the scenario? Is Microsoft also taking the responsibility of doing
No,
that?
I have read their agreement and all that. I don't think they are taking responsibility there. They are saying it is the responsibility of the person who signed for the release. And then, they would actually come out strongly against it. But what is that going to do? Sneha could have already by that time launched a product with it, and then she could have copyrighted it and marketed it. By the time it's all over, you can sue Sneha. Microsoft can sue you, and also anybody can sue you, but it's out there.
Yeah. And I think this is a very good example of ethics as a layer on top of your product instead of embedded in your product. It's basically, they're doing save your ass kind of a thing where they are like saying, okay, if we are safe of litigation. And we are also, I think, by the way, doing a morally the right thing by doing a gated release. So it sounds more like a marketing, and there's more of a marketing angle to this than actually solving the problem, right? So I think this becomes a very good example of ethics on top of your product, not in your product.
Yeah, it is actually ethics on top. It's like putting a bow around it and a nice ribbon and saying it works. But that's my critique. That's my personal critique of all the frameworks out there. So I haven't found a good one. When I do, I will share it with this group.
So,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think there are a lot of comments actually. Sorry, I completely I was focusing on your
no, I was
on your
talking about,
video. So
I was just adding the ethical framework that you were talking about. There's one from ACLU for facial recognition. I didn't want to derail the flow of conversation, which was going well. I just shared the whole gated release spec. So somebody in technology cared enough about it and decided to build this kind of tech gateway and system. Right? There's a product manager.
I think there's some problem.
Okay. Should I?
I think now you're okay.
Okay, thank you. So what is fascinating is somebody in technology in Microsoft cared enough about ethics. But then they spent their time and energy. There's a whole product manager, product team behind building this gated release. If you look at the document, it says, how do you add a gated release? Here is a REST API for it. And what are the different ways by which you can create this pipeline to get this gated release? It's just fascinating. And you mentioned one more from Google also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fairness something. What is it called?
Let me see.
Meanwhile, Olga has shared the ethics of AI ethics. It's an article or a research. Yeah, it's
an article. Yeah, it is research.
I think, Susanna, even if you can consolidate, I wish you, I don't know if you've already written one, but you should write a book. we need even the work of all this brought in one place to build up, because there are different people different groups who are working on AI ethics. And so far, every AI ethicist I have met and every single group is a woman. And I don't know why that is the case. And if there are people in companies, we should diversify the AI ethics team inside companies. Looks like they are working on this. That means there are people who care. They're just thinking we want to be equitable about it. There might be some use case that is needed for this product. Like you said, there is this evil persona, something that you made up. Is that a phrase that you made up?
Evil persona is something that I made up, but out there it's not called that. It's called by a nice name called harms modeling or mitigation modeling, or there are nicer sounding names. I like I like to call it what it is.
So, Dr.
No,
Charles
I think it's
is not here today. Sorry, Sneha, let me just finish this one sentence. Charles Eckham is not here on the chat today, but he has created this AIX framework for design. So I just messaged him saying, we should add this evil persona as one of your, we have this concept of adding a persona for AI as so that AI doesn't get genderized because it is going to be humanized. So just to add a persona for AI, I just realized that we should add an evil persona and make sure that designers work on it in such a way that it is mitigated. Because if people go that route, then you stop. You don't open the garage when you know that yes, suspect psychopath is in the garage. That's a scary example. But Sneha, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I was going to say that we should make evil persona as part of all the product frameworks. When you say user personas, okay, who's going to be the evil persona? You're ideating something. How can something be misused? I think it's a pretty. I know that hardware product development has these things because they want to ensure it is safe. So they do have. It's not like they don't call it evil persona, but I think it's more for security and safety reasons they have that how can it be misused by a kid? What if a kid handles it? Will they be able to operate it? So they have some checks and balances in that way. So I think for software product development, and like you said, we should call it the way it is. It is an evil persona. It is trying to misuse the product or use the product for not the intended purpose, right?
So in hardware, I was part of this IEEE group where they were saying, how do we create fail-safe AI? And the focus was on hardware. At that point, I thought I was representing the autonomous vehicle world, so I was just focused only on the car, right? So I had not thought of this whole software and data being evil, but they were doing what you were saying, Sneha, that it is, hardware is going to fail at some point, and they thought somebody would take control of robots and autonomous vehicles and there would be hackers. And so how do you decide fail-safe design was the thinking, but not from the data perspective. So I think there needs to be some discussion that needs to come, and I hope Susanna can contribute to that.
I think Consuela already shared the fairness indicator model. I shared it with everyone now, so she was able to. She or he, I don't know, was able to find it.
He Consuela.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Very
where I
interesting.
got actually the ML model pipeline. There is always good material when companies release these fairness models and representation models. I don't want to criticize their efforts, but I feel like it doesn't go far enough. When it doesn't go far enough, that's when AI ethics researchers or ethics enthusiasts like me and everyone out there has to come out against it and say it doesn't go far enough. So that's where I come from. I'm not criticizing them for their efforts, but I don't think I actually feel like it's the fox asking to guard the hen house. That kind of a scenario. It's like if you are developing it, I don't trust it.
So one thing I'm going to do is I have a AI bootcamp class, which is more product managers and some innovation managers types in my Stanford class coming up on Tuesdays in October. So when I'm talking about the framework for PMs to build AI, I'm going to include this evil persona and give you credit and make sure that when you dehumanize the AI, think about it this way. And I'm going to say you should think about the evil persona. I think each one of us should just take what we can do from our world and go from here. Do you want to tell us about the hackathon and how we can participate, inspired by this, with whatever data you showed? If you want to come and do something.
Yes, the hackathon is by data ethics for all. I think Consuela says evil personas memorable. Yeah. So it is by data ethics for all. It's an organization that I actually came to know only 3 months ago. So they are doing a lot of good work, and I'm glad that I could play a small role in that, and that is actually being part of the organizing team for the hackathon. This hackathon is about addressing the three critical areas, that issues that are now the focus of the events surrounding our country right now, which is AI in predictive policing, AI in criminal justice, which is what I talked about a little bit today. I mean, it's a big ocean by itself. And then there's AI in contact tracing, COVID-19 contact tracing apps. So we decide to focus on these three challenges for the hackathon, and our hackathon is unique in the way that it's asking you to think from an ethics perspective, use ethics and inclusion, and then try to hack for a solution in to eliminate the bias in these algorithms. Either you try to eliminate them by fixing the bias in already in data sets, or you could come up with new algorithms that are free of such biases, or you could come up with a policy, or any visualization method or anything that you think of that is very unique way of seeing the data. So we are like very open ended. We have 5 tracks for you to come up with a solution. So this is open for everyone, 16 and above. It's free. And we also have an AI summit on the 17th, where most of the world leaders and leaders in this area are now coming together to speak on this issue. That is also free. I hope everyone joins that. And then on the second day, we are offering a boot camp. On the 18th, there is a boot camp of all the technology classes. The reason for that is we are opening this hackathon to non-tech people as well. So we want them to get a hands-on training, a ramp up of the technical skills. So we designed the boot camp around that. So that boot camp is on the second day, and then the third and fourth day is the hackathon. It's 48 hours of AI hackathon.
So the September 17th is what? 17th is the talks, right?
Yes, the AI summit.
Yeah, summit. And then the 18th is
Is
the
the boot camp.
boot camp for everybody.
Yes, everybody.
No, okay.
Yeah, if you register, then you will get all the links, and pretty much you are in. You get everything for free.
And hackathon is from the 17th, from the 18th
18th to 19th.
And what happens on 19th?
19th
So,
to 20th.
so what happens on the 19th? If somebody comes, I can understand the first 2 days, right? You're listening in. So if somebody wants to build solutions and look at some data and come up creating some report, is that counted as a hackathon, or you have to build an app?
You don't. The app is one of the 5 outcomes, and a visualization dashboard is another outcome. You
Yeah.
build a prototype for an app. You can come up with a policy. You can even come up with a hybrid of all of those solutions. So we are very open-ended in what solution you come up with, but it has to look at the AI algorithms because it's an AI hackathon, and you have to focus uh, on it from an ethics point of view. So those are the criteria.
Okay. No, this is fantastic. And you have
Very
mentors.
interesting.
You have mentors and.
Of course, we have a lot of mentors, subject matter experts. We have people already on board and ready to guide them in that. And one other unique thing about this hackathon is that other hackathons tell you like you can bring your friends and join and have fun. We think that is the problem with technology, because you birds of a feather flock together. Like we don't mingle with people who have another kind of opinion, or from a different skill set. We like to mingle with the same people. So we actually created an algorithm that will match you from someone who has a different skill set from you. So that's different from each other that you will be, so that each team member has very different skill sets coming together, very different backgrounds coming together to work on the solution. We think by building diversity into that, diversity in cognitive thought, cognition, that will be a good way to eliminate some of the biases that naturally comes when there is no diversity.
Okay, back to you, Sneha. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this is very interesting. I'm going to look this up. And thank you so much for coming again. Every time you come, we always feel like we want more and we need to talk more. And it's a very interesting topic. Lots to learn. So just before we leave, I would like, if you can send us some of the links that you mentioned, I can forward it to everyone. And we can post it somewhere, Sudha. But thank you so much for coming. I think this was very, very helpful. I learned a lot. I'm sure everyone did. And I think with this, I don't see any more questions, and I think we are on time. So I would like to end. And Susanna, any last thoughts?
No, nothing at all. Thanks for having me again. And
can people follow up with you, because I think you always leave us with more questions in the end. I'm intrigued. I don't know if I'm eligible enough or whether I can do something, but I'm intrigued to see whether I can participate in the hackathon and go look at one of your data sets. I won't be able to build an app within 2 days, but maybe I can create some visualization or something like a policy or something, right?
You're welcome to join. We would love to have you there.
Thank you. So I want to see whether anybody from here who wants to join, maybe we can go, build something, make a dent. So let's see. And we'll definitely follow up with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Okay, thanks. With that, we'll wrap up. And we'll put the archive of this on Career Pivots from where you signed up. And we'll add all the other links also that is being shared on the chat here. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, stop the recording. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Olga. This link was very useful. Thank you. And Quenzuelo, your questions were perfect. Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye.